And our players across the league are too often the targets. This is not something any player in this league should have to tolerate.
Do you think Caitlyn's being used as a pawn? Caitlyn didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of.
You know what's happening right now? Everyone seems completely taken aback, but for those who've been watching closely, this moment was only a matter of time. Everything ignited right here, and you'll want to stay with me until the end to understand why the Indiana Fever are on the edge of major transformation. The franchise just released a string of powerful announcements, including a revelation about their star, Caitlin Clark, that has shaken the entire league. And in the midst of it all, the legendary Sue Bird stepped forward, delivering a fierce and uncompromising condemnation of the racism she's witnessed in the WNBA. Let's be honest.
Continue. There is one thing I want to reset, that we want to reset, and it's the language being used around fans. Fever fans, Caitlyn fans, new fans. That actually has to go.
This moment was overdue by years. Think about it. Countless legends, MVPs, and Olympic champions spent their entire careers quietly pushing through the same barriers and fighting the same battles without ever receiving real acknowledgement. But then, suddenly, someone finally stepped up with the courage and boldness to speak the truth out loud. Sue Bird didn't speak just to make noise. Not at all. She came prepared with explosive honesty, delivering a level of intensity and clarity that simply couldn't be ignored. And the Indiana Fever's response to her words has already set the tone for what their future will look like. But before we dive into the details...
Did you, when you went and kind of swatted at Caitlyn, did you intend to hit her in the eye? And if so, could you just, or if not, either way, could you talk about what happened on that play?
I don't even know why I would intend to hit anybody in the eye. That doesn't even make sense to me. But no, I didn't. I didn't know I hit her, actually. I was trying to make a play on the ball, and I guess I followed through and I hit her. So obviously it's never intentional. That's not even like the type of player that I am. So yeah.
Did you and Marina kind of laugh about it afterwards? It looked like there was later on in the game they caught you guys laughing about it.
No, I just told you I didn't even know I hit her, so I can't laugh about something I didn't know happened.
And here's the unbelievable part. Despite everything at stake, Sue Bird didn't hesitate for even a second before diving into a completely unfiltered podcast conversation with none other than Megan Rapinoe. It was a bold move, one that could have damaged her reputation or even her career, yet she pushed forward without fear. On that podcast, she confronted the toughest questions head-on. She demanded to know why Caitlin Clark had become the target of such intense racial hostility. Why were her extraordinary achievements, her record-shattering sales, and her undeniable influence being dismissed so openly? And then, in a move no one saw coming, she went even further, dropping subtle but unmistakable hints about the possibility of a deeper, systemic league-wide effort aimed specifically at undermining Caitlyn. Think about that for a moment.
Basically, hearing it initially, my visceral reaction was like, that's not good. That doesn't feel good. That feels racist, to be honest.
So where did everything truly start to boil over? It all erupted when D.I. Jonai Carrington was approached by journalist Christine after a game with what seemed like a simple, harmless question. And I know what you're thinking, just another routine post-game moment, right? Athletes deal with tough questions, controversies, and on-court incidents all the time. But this time, things veered off course instantly. Megan Rapinoe, with her trademark sharpness, fired back, pointing out that even though the question seemed harmless on the surface, the way it was framed carried a deeply troubling racial undertone. In that instant, an entirely new, and absolutely crucial, angle burst into the conversation, shifting the entire narrative in one dramatic moment.
Disagree with you on Christine Brennan's question being dickish, or maybe she shouldn't have answered it, because it was something that was out there that everybody was talking about. And so she asked the question, and it was a great opportunity for Carrington to, on the record, say, no, I didn't do it. And that's all that happened. So I do disagree with you. I don't think it was a dickish question. I think it was a fine question based on what was going on at the moment.
And let's be completely honest here. The overwhelming reaction was simple, that felt racist. And Sue Bird, being exactly who she is, refused to let the moment slip by without confronting it head-on. She didn't hold back. She didn't sugarcoat. She went straight at the media, calling out ESPN by name for twisting the situation into something far more explosive than it ever needed to be. Her message was unmistakable. The original question may not have been intentionally racist, but the way the media framed and packaged it absolutely was. And that, she said, was deeply alarming. Sue laid out an uncomfortable truth with absolute precision. Athletes of color are consistently judged, dissected, and criticized at levels far beyond what white athletes face. Think about it. When a black athlete ends up in a similar scenario, it almost never remains a simple misunderstanding. It transforms into a serious confrontation, an escalating dispute, or far too often, a racially charged firestorm. It's a double standard hiding in plain sight.
It led to the Twitter trolls and bots taking over. And what started there was this narrative of petty, jealous players hating on Caitlyn. That's really what happened. That's where it started. That we must just dislike her, that we look at her side-eyed, that we don't want her to come in the WNBA and be successful, that we're hating on her, right? So we're petty.
Sue, always the sharpest voice in the room, immediately connected the dots and made it clear that this wasn't some isolated misunderstanding. It was part of a much bigger, deeply rooted pattern playing out in real time. And she said all of this before she had even truly gotten started. Meanwhile, journalist Christine boldly called out both the WNBA and the media for their complete failure to manage the narrative, and in some ways, for allowing harmful rumors to grow unchecked, even if she never intended for things to escalate the way they did. Now here's where Sue's perspective lands with full force. She argued that if D.I. Jonai Carrington had been white, this entire situation would have passed with minimal attention, barely making a dent. But, and this is the critical part, if a white athlete had been placed in Carrington's exact shoes, the media would have spun a fully developed storyline, exploring every emotional angle and consequence in exhaustive detail. The double standard could not be more obvious.
At any point did I think anybody was playing dirty against Caitlyn? Not at any point did I think Caitlyn was targeted. And I'm going to stop on that word because what happened was these petty jealousy narratives that got formed. Then, when the season started and people saw people blocking Caitlyn's shot or picking her up full court, it then became, oh, they're targeting her.
In the immediate aftermath, the situation exploded into what can only be described as a full-scale takeover of Twitter, flooded with bots, trolls, and fabricated accounts all working to amplify a toxic narrative. And the entire frenzy stemmed from one flimsy, exaggerated storyline, the claim that bitter, small-minded fans were supposedly jealous of Caitlyn Clark. That became the spark. Suddenly, the narrative twisted into this insidious idea that people simply disliked her, that they refused to understand her point of view, that they didn't want to see her succeed in the WNBA, and that the resentment toward her was personal. In other words, the message being pushed was simple. We're jealous, we're petty, and that's the only explanation.
That it is right now, like it's popping right now, and just being able to know that, like, I'm happy where we are. I'm happy to see all the girly girls being able to pop it and look cute on the runway and being able to continue that.
And this is where things take an unbelievable turn. Sue went on to break down, step by step, how one single, seemingly harmless remark from none other than Diana Taurasi, one of the most legendary figures the sport has ever seen, became the spark that ignited this entire volatile narrative. Yes, the icon herself made an offhand comment, but its impact was anything but casual. Those words detonated across the league, setting off a chain reaction that plunged the WNBA into pure, unfiltered chaos. No one expected the fallout to spiral the way it did, but the ripple effect was immediate and explosive. And in the middle of the madness, our steady voice of clarity, Sue Bird, was forced to step in and lay out exactly what was unfolding.
All of what I've said led to this group of people being able to push those racist agendas, which really has been, in my opinion, the cause of all of this. And everybody from this moment on has, not everybody, but a lot of people have been operating under the assumption that these narratives, particularly the targeting narrative, is true. And
this time, the impact was far more destructive than anyone could have imagined. When Sue said things turned ugly, she wasn't talking about the usual competitive heat or occasional on-court disagreements. No, she meant the moment the sport itself ceased to be the focus, the moment overt hate speech began to dominate the conversation. It's when fans' outrage moves beyond the game, touching on issues like racism, entrenched privilege, and every other harsh reality you can imagine, that you realize a boundary has been crossed, a line that should never have been approached in the first place.
Racism has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. This is not a new thing. Sure. This is, and in that way, I do think Caitlyn's being used as a pawn. Caitlyn didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us, that other people are surprised by this.
Not at any point did I think anybody was playing dirty against Caitlyn. Not at any point did I think Caitlyn was targeted. And I'm going to stop on that word because what happened was these petty jealousy narratives that got formed. Then when the season started and people saw people blocking Caitlyn's shot or picking her up full court, it then became, oh, they are targeting her. Oh, they are fine. And then Sue Bird dropped another bombshell, revealing that Caitlin Clark was forced to grapple with far more than just the usual elbows and nasty trash talk. Oh no, this was different.
She's obviously doing amazing. Her game speaks for itself. I think my favorite part is just women's basketball, women's sports really, but women's basketball has been on the rise. And it's kind of like what Magic and Bird was to men's basketball. Like this moment, we kind of needed something.
This is
to
that
just
moment.
and Caitlin's that moment. And I think a lot of it has to do with her logo